Hey, welcome to Pragmatic Existential Lifestyle. I'm Samuel O'Matafish. I'm not a philosopher with a fancy title or any kind of authority here. Just someone who's spent years exploring life's big questions and, yeah, sometimes getting completely lost in them too. These ideas I'm going to share with you, they come from a mix of late nights, stacks of books, and, honestly, a lot of real-life experiences. The kind that don't always go as planned, that throw you off balance and make you think a little deeper. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering, what's all this really about? Then you're in the right place. This podcast isn't about delivering answers from on high. It's about exploring questions, the kind of questions we all have but don't always know where to take. Questions like, why are we here? How do we find meaning in a world that can feel overwhelming or even absurd? And how do we make sense of it all in a way that feels grounded and real? And that's really the motivation behind Pragmatic Existential Lifestyle. I created this podcast because, let's face it, life doesn't come with a manual. We're all just trying to figure it out as we go. I wanted to build a space where we could look at these big ideas and see how they can actually help us in the day-to-day. Not just philosophy for philosophy's sake, but something practical. Something that makes sense in the messiness of everyday life. So, that's what this journey is all about. Finding a grounded, realistic approach to life's big questions that we can carry with us, that actually makes a difference in how we live. So, what exactly is pragmatic existentialism? At its core, it's something I like to call positive nihilism. Now, I know that might sound contradictory, or maybe even a little daunting. Typically, when we think of nihilism, we think of a kind of bleak outlook. The idea that life has no inherent meaning, no purpose, that we're all just drifting in an indifferent universe. But here's where the positive part comes in. If life doesn't come with a built-in meaning, maybe that's actually good news. Maybe it frees us to create meaning on our own terms, to shape our lives in ways that resonate personally, rather than looking for answers that are out there somewhere. Imagine it like this. Rather than waiting for life to hand you a purpose, pragmatic existentialism invites you to decide what matters to you, what you want to stand for, and then to build your life around that. There's something incredibly liberating in that freedom. It means we're not tied down by someone else's idea of meaning. And we're not obligated to follow a path that doesn't feel true to who we are. We get to experiment, to adapt, to change course if we need to, and that flexibility is empowering. Another core part of pragmatic existentialism is realism and relativism. Realism in the sense that we are not chasing idealistic visions or absolute truths. Instead, we're acknowledging that truth can be relative. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay. This isn't about finding a one-size-fits-all answer to life's big questions. It's about welcoming multiple perspectives, accepting that different people may have different ways of seeing the world, and that we don't have to insist that one of those views is right or wrong. It's a more open, flexible approach that makes space for different experiences and truths, without getting bogged down by a need for certainties. And here's where the practicality comes in. Pragmatic existentialism isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's something you can actually live by. It's a philosophy that's meant to be used, like a toolkit for navigating everyday life. Let's face it, life can be overwhelming, messy, unpredictable. Having a practical philosophy that can adapt with us, that gives us tools we can use day to day, that's what makes this approach so meaningful to me. I'll give you a real example from my own life. There was a time when I was going through a particularly rough period, feeling kind of lost, questioning what I was doing and where I was going. I had this overwhelming sense of an existential void. You know, that nagging question of, what's the point of it all? But instead of letting that feeling crush me, I decided to flip it on its head. If there's no built-in point, then it's up to me to create one. I started to focus on the things I valued, things I could control, things that brought me a sense of purpose. I realized that meaning doesn't have to be this grand, ultimate thing. It can be something you build piece by piece, through your actions, your relationships, the small choices you make every day. So that's what pragmatic existentialism is about. It's about accepting that life might not have a prescribed meaning, and seeing that as an opportunity, not a drawback. It's about being realistic, acknowledging that different truths can coexist, and embracing that. And most importantly, it's about practicality, about finding ways to apply these ideas to make our lives richer, more intentional, and a little bit easier to navigate. We're living in a time where everyone seems to expect us to know exactly what we want out of life, to have a clear purpose, to have everything figured out. It's as if there's some invisible checklist we're all supposed to complete. Find your passion, set big goals, achieve success, and, of course, be happy all the time. But what if that pressure to have it all figured out is part of the problem? What if one of the best ways to live isn't about finding absolute answers, but rather learning to live without them? Pragmatic existentialism gives us permission to let go of that rigid need for certainty. It's about finding a balance, living with purpose but also with the freedom to adapt, to evolve, and to change course as we learn and grow. One of the biggest challenges we face today is dealing with uncertainty. Life is complex, it's unpredictable, and, let's be honest, it's often overwhelming. This philosophy doesn't try to eliminate that uncertainty or pretend it's not there. Instead, it helps us navigate it. Pragmatic existentialism encourages us to accept that life's unknowns are part of the journey. We can still create meaning and direction even when we don't have all the answers. In fact, not having all the answers might actually be what gives us the flexibility to create a life that's uniquely ours. Another important aspect of pragmatic existentialism is its resistance to absolutes. In a world that often feels divided, where we're told to pick a side on almost every issue, this philosophy offers an alternative. It allows us to live without the need for rigid beliefs or dogmatic views. Instead of clinging to certainty, it promotes openness and adaptability. We can hold our values and beliefs with purpose, but without the need for them to be universally correct. This flexibility lets us grow, adjust, and respond to life's challenges in a way that's realistic and meaningful. At its heart, pragmatic existentialism is about living with intention. It invites us to focus on actions that resonate with our values and what truly matters to us personally. Instead of seeking external validation or following someone else's blueprint, it encourages us to ask ourselves what we genuinely care about and to pursue those things. It's about building a life where we're not driven by other people's expectations, but by our own inner compass. I remember a time in my own life when I had to let go of the need for certainty. There was a period when I felt a strong pull to find the answer, some ultimate purpose or path that would make everything fall into place. I thought if I could just figure it all out, I'd feel settled, complete. But of course, that answer never came. It was frustrating at first, almost like a kind of existential itch I couldn't scratch. But over time, I started to realize that maybe I didn't need an ultimate answer. Maybe, instead, I could create meaning piece by piece, day by day, focusing on what felt right in each moment. That shift from seeking certainty to embracing intention and adaptability was a game changer for me. I stopped waiting for clarity to come from some outside source and started focusing on what I could build from within. Let's take a second to think about this. What would it mean for you to give up the need for absolute meaning? How would it feel to create meaning that's entirely yours, without waiting for any external validation? For me, this philosophy didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was something I pieced together, bit by bit, over time. It began with an insatiable curiosity, a kind of restlessness that pushed me to dig deeper, to ask questions that didn't always have easy answers. I read books, explored different philosophies, and tried to understand the human experience from every angle I could. But it wasn't only intellectual, it was personal. Every book I read, every idea I encountered, seemed to add another piece to a puzzle that I wasn't even sure I was putting together. There were moments in my life, often the difficult ones, where these ideas took on real meaning. It wasn't enough to just think about life's big questions in an abstract way. I wanted to feel them, to live them. I remember a specific moment, an aha moment, you could say, that brought a lot of things into focus for me. I was struggling with the idea of purpose, feeling this weight, that if I didn't find some grand, singular meaning, I'd somehow missed the point. And then, in one of those quiet, late-night reflections, it hit me. Maybe I was looking at it all wrong. Maybe I didn't need an ultimate answer. Maybe, instead, I could focus on creating purpose, step by step, in a way that felt genuine to me. Over time, this approach started to feel more cohesive, more like a philosophy I could stand by. I wasn't searching for the meaning of life anymore. I was searching for ways to bring meaning into life, my own life, in practical and authentic ways. Pragmatic existentialism became that framework for me. It wasn't about grand theories or abstract ideals. It was about finding tools, perspectives, and small actions that could make life feel richer, more intentional, without needing all the answers in advance. And that's how pragmatic existentialism came together for me. Not as some finished idea that arrived in a flash, but as a process, a journey of discovery. So, what are the key principles of pragmatic existentialism? Let's break them down, starting with something I like to call positive nihilism. It sounds a bit contradictory, right? But here's the idea. Life, as we know it, doesn't come with a pre-packaged meaning. There's no universal blueprint that says, this is what you're here for. Now, for some people, this lack of inherent meaning might feel unsettling or even a bit bleak. But for us, within pragmatic existentialism, it's liberating. It frees us from the pressure of living up to some grand, predefined purpose. Instead, we get to create our own meaning, to define what's valuable to us personally, and build a life around those values. Imagine setting personal goals not because they align with some universal plan, but because they genuinely resonate with you. That's the power of positive nihilism. It allows us to shape our lives in ways that feel right, rather than in ways that we think we're supposed to. The second principle is something I call purposeful relativism. In pragmatic existentialism, we acknowledge that truth can be relative. What's meaningful or true for one person might not be the same for someone else, and that's okay. It's about finding our own truths while respecting that others might have different ones. But here's the twist. Just because truth is flexible doesn't mean we live without purpose. Purposeful relativism means living with intention, making choices that align with what feels deeply meaningful to us. It's about saying, this may be my truth, and it might change over time, but right now, I'm choosing to live by it wholeheartedly. It's a way to embrace flexibility without becoming aimless, to allow our beliefs and values to evolve without feeling lost. Think of it as allowing yourself the freedom to grow, while still committing to what matters to you in the moment. The third principle is what I'd call realistic pragmatism. Life, as we all know, is unpredictable. It's filled with obstacles, big and small, and often doesn't match up to any idealistic vision. Pragmatic existentialism embraces this reality. Instead of chasing perfection or expecting life to be smooth, we focus on practical, actionable steps that make sense in the real world. Realistic pragmatism is about finding ways to approach our everyday challenges with honesty and practicality, without relying on lofty ideals or abstract theories. For example, rather than seeking an ideal job or relationship, we focus on what realistically brings us a sense of fulfillment and aligns with our values. It's not about settling, but about understanding what actually matters to us and acting on that one step at a time. It's philosophy grounded in reality, where we find meaning not by dreaming about a perfect life, but by making intentional choices in the life we have. So, there you have it. Positive nihilism gives us the freedom to create our own meaning. Purposeful relativism lets us live with intention, even if our truth is unique to us. And realistic pragmatism helps us bring it all down to earth, making it something we can act on daily. Together, these principles form a philosophy that's not just something to think about. It's something to live, something practical that we can apply in the real, messy, beautiful world we inhabit. In the episodes to come, we'll go even deeper, exploring how pragmatic existentialism applies to all areas of life. We'll dive into the challenges we encounter daily, from navigating our personal relationships to finding meaning in our work, and we'll tackle those big, timeless questions that seem to surface during quiet moments. Each episode will break down a specific concept or challenge, not in some distant academic way, but in a way that you can take with you and apply in your everyday life. We'll look at how this philosophy can guide us through real-world situations, giving us tools to find clarity, purpose, and even joy amidst the complexities of modern existence. Whether it's dealing with uncertainty, cultivating resilience, or embracing imperfection, pragmatic existentialism offers a way forward that's grounded, realistic, and tailored to the lives we're actually living. My hope is that as we journey through these episodes together, you'll feel empowered to make intentional choices, to find meaning in ways that feel true to you, and to approach life with curiosity and courage. So, if this resonates with you, I invite you to stick around, to explore these ideas with me, and to keep an open mind as we dive deeper. There's a lot more to come, and I'm excited to continue this journey with you. As we bring this first episode to a close, I want to leave you with something to ponder. What would it mean for you to live without needing absolute answers? Imagine stepping into each day, not searching for a grand, universal truth, but instead creating your own meaning through the choices you make, the values you hold, and the connections you nurture. How would it feel to embrace the uncertainty, to see it not as a barrier, but as an open canvas for your own story? Take a moment to reflect on that. Let it sit with you as you go about your day, or wind down for the evening. This is the essence of pragmatic existentialism. It's not about having all the answers. It's about engaging with the questions in a way that feels authentic and meaningful to you. If this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to join me for future episodes. Together, we'll explore more ideas, more challenges, and more practical ways to live with intention and purpose. And if you have thoughts, questions, or topics you'd love to hear about, I'd be thrilled to hear from you. This podcast is a shared journey, and your voice matters. Thank you for spending this time with me on Pragmatic Existential Lifestyle. I look forward to diving deeper with you in the episodes ahead. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep exploring what it means to live meaningfully.